Good afternoon to all those who are in the panel, to all those who will be joining us in chat, and all those who will be watching this later on because realistically you have nothing better to do. Let's be honest about it. Today we're going to be talking about a 2012 American classic, American sci-fi action adventure film called John Carter. And today I will be hanging out with Omen as always, Shadow, and at some point, Gentleman Jack will show up, and Mark. Now, all but one of these guys have their own channels, and I think you should go pay some love to Shadow and Son and to Mark when you get a chance to. Now, we might have a few extra guests today, and when they come, I'll introduce them. But did everybody like this movie?
It was better than I thought. I mean, I avoided it so much because it looked the marketing was horrible. And then I had my friend tell me, I heard Shadow talk about it, and so I bought it probably about a few months ago. And this sounds funny, even though we don't have the sound up. Because I remember the problem is that I still get confused over some of it. I have some of it playing right now in the background without the noise, just to make sure I get the scenes correct.
I'm not getting monetized, so So you showed a Disney film. Yeah, I didn't show it. Somebody else did.
This was pre Star Wars, and once they got Star Wars, they just stopped caring about it. And the problem I'm going to have with this is they tried jamming in 3 books into one movie, and that never works out, especially when most books really take the equivalent of 4 hours to really do justice to a book.
I like the speed of this movie.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that for those of us who grew up on the literature, we see on how great it could have been and where it fails. And you know, I know that's probably where Shadow's going with it as well. Yes.
Yeah. So, Shadow, this was your pick. Why did you pick John Carter? This movie.
Well, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. It was kind of really your pick. You reminded me that I guess to my old age, I forgot that this is literally in my top 3 favorite movies of all time. Depending on my mood, it could easily rise to number 1 during April, because that's when I get to do a whole month of my favorite stuff on the channel. And we did a whole month last year on John Carter, the little guy and I. And, like Owen said, it doesn't do the books justice. But, wow, a gnat's wing away from, everything you could ask for in some sort of John Carter representation. Had Disney not acquired not just Marvel and Star Wars at about the same time, and had not had such a massive amount of hate for the franchise and the Edgar Rice Burroughs Foundation, they could have milked this. We could still be waiting for the next John Carter, sequel movie. They could have done all 10 books, 10 movies, made more money than any other franchise if they had really marketed it. Star Wars is just taking a nosedive. Marvel's taking a nosedive. They just follow the books, and they made no action figures. They made no toys, no T-shirts, no coffee mugs. They went out of their way to undermarket this, and it still managed, to more than break even throughout, the course of, time. They could have literally, followed any previous franchise all the way back to Planet of the Apes, when Planet of the Apes was literally everywhere. You could not go anywhere without bumping into someone wearing a Cornelius T-shirt or beach towels, the whole bit. They could have just made so much money. To date, there are 2 John Carter toys, that being the swords from John Carter and Tarz Tarkas. And if you could find those on the open market, you are a lucky guy. Grab them. They made no action figures. Are you kidding me? No Tarz Tarkas action figure. Okay, a company actually did make some John Carter action figures and toys way back 20 plus years ago, and I have almost all of them, and they're crap, but they're better than the toys that are being made now. The kids would have loved this stuff. You could have had the girls involved as well, with all the, Deja Thoris stuff coming out the wazoo if they had chosen to do so. You know, for Christ's sake, it's Disney. They could have done whatever they wanted, and they showed they didn't want to. And it's a crying shame because in a couple of years or more, someone's going to go, "Hey, let's do it again. Let's do the whole thing. Let's do all 10, or let's do an animated series." Are you kidding me? I would be there glued to the set to watch it. And Disney said, "Nah, we're going to put our money on Star Wars. We're going to put our money on DC Comics, or excuse me, Marvel Comics." And look what they did to that. They just absolutely just trash canned everything they've touched when it came to something that wasn't, more or less an original Disney kind of thing. And, someone up there at the top of Disney has got to be, kicking themselves, thinking about it, gosh, how much money could we have made off this franchise? But,
well, I think this comes back to, when we talk about the ESG stuff, but, I re-listened to the books, probably a couple months ago, the first 3. I'm like, look, I understand that there's a certain point where John Carter goes off, but they couldn't even call it John Carter of Mars. That's what gets me about it. They couldn't say Edgar Rice Burroughs because they had the foundation, everyone else. Edgar Rice Burroughs, John Carter of Mars. See where the, sword and the, what do you want to call it? What is it? Sword and science meet, pulp, they could have just done that. And just because by my understanding, Disney bought this because Disney was viewed as a girls brand and they wanted to bring in boys. And as soon as they got Marvel and Star Wars,
Tarzan forever, and Tarzan is massively popular worldwide and has been. There was a time where it was the most read, most popular book on the planet, and we're talking something that's over 100 years old. Look at how amazingly ahead of, the whole rest of the world when it comes to, weird tales and science fiction of that, bygone era. This was just light years beyond. And now we've got a ready market that would just eat this up.
I don't actually. It would have been cool. I'm actually looking to see if, because the fact that they made no toys to this seems weird to me. And it's not that I don't believe you. I just wanted to see for myself. Once again, it's not that I don't believe you. It just sounds weird.
There's another company that made a John Carter really large action figure that's like $200 now.
Right.
But that was like
McDonald's would make toys for some of these movies that came out. They did it with
right.
Batman. They did it with multiple movies, and I'm like, there's got to be something out there. I'm wondering, back with Sony, I'm gonna go with a little stretch, but the whole toy thing, there was Sony wanted to make another Spider-Man movie, and Marvel's like, well, we'd like to have Spider-Man back, but Sony's like, but we own it. He's like, that's fine, go ahead and make your movie, but here's the thing, we're not going to produce any toys for it. We're not going to produce anything other than the bare minimum to help you sell your movie. And this was Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. This wasn't Tobey Maguire. This was Andrew Garfield.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up a little bit about that. By my understanding, is Sony was required, if they didn't do anything with the franchise for 10 years, they would lose it. And so they kind of threw that one in there.
That's kind of what happened here. I think they were about to lose the rights to do anything. So they're like, okay, fine. It's 2012. Coming up, let's do the anniversary thing, and then
the budget. I'm looking at what the budget was and how much the budget was, and I'm waiting for my daughter to come here and tell me. Way loud.
And wait, don't look at the budget of what they spent on this. Look at the budget for marketing.
I'll have to look at further ones. Yeah. I think they just. I mean, this has really, really good actors. Had a lot of, George Lucas style, special effects. It had a lot of cool stuff to it. Then you just look at. I don't have anything negative. Well, actually, that's not true. There's a few negative things I have to say about this movie, but we'll get into that later. But as a whole, the amount of money I think they poured the right amount of money into this film. The problem was It wasn't on commercials. McDonald's didn't buy toys. There wasn't enough posters. There wasn't. I mean, fuck. There might not. The Princess could have sang a song, and then you would have had a John Carter soundtrack. Whatever.
Mhm.
It's well, and Shadow and I have looked probably more into this. It went in development hell. There was a lot of interference from upper level executives. They all want to do this and that. And really, what it should have probably done, and this is my view, and I don't think, is if they just focused on the first book, which was, it followed some of the stuff in there when I was listening to it, and then they would bring in, which we'll talk about later, but then they bring other stuff. I said, well, wait a minute. The first book has a cliffhanger. He almost, also he gets transported back to Earth right at the last minute. And he's like, I have to go back. And he's trying to find out. There was there were certain things that I understand why they did it, but they were different. Man, they just had.
Well, this movie
it was unfocused was part of the problem. They went into kind of development hell, which raised the. I mean, they probably could have made this just as good if they had had a clear focus at the beginning. If everyone had interfered, for probably about 150, 175 million.
If they had done the classic cliffhanger, oh my God, they would have absolutely just shocked and awed the viewing audience. They would have been clamoring for the next 2 years for the sequel. It would have just been the next biggest thing.
Maybe. There's been, really quick, before we go further into this, Mark, what did you think of the film? Because you're the only one who hasn't spoke up.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was really good. I was just wondering with the whole marketing thing and the non-release of toys and everything else. I was just wondering if anybody looked into it. Were they having any issues with was there any type of bad deals or anything with the Burroughs estate that maybe was the reason why they didn't put out stuff like that? Was there any issues, legal issues like that they couldn't work out? I don't know if that was. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit, but I was just wondering if that was a thing. I didn't look into it at all, but
it wouldn't be the first time something like that would have happened, where the family, like Conan, the family owns Conan, and they let other companies rent it out for a while, then they bring it back. The family could have said, no, we don't want any action figures. We don't want anything.
They had done so in the past.
I'm going to bring up something else. This has gone into, I think in 2012, it was into public domain.
If it should have been, if it wasn't, it was like right on the cusp of it. But yeah, it was approaching 100 years old. If it wasn't at that, I didn't look up the year.
Yeah, it came out in 2012.
It was.
I
know, but if it was, the story was 100 years old at that time or not, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it was written in 1912. I mean, think about that. 100 freaking years ago, this was going through his mind, and I mean, we could barely actually fly, and he's like doing all this great sci-fi fantasy stuff, I can imagine back then that it wasn't, people were like, what the hell am I reading? You know what I mean?
I'm going to bring up I'm a little less nostalgic than Shadow is about this. I don't think it would have been the greatest. I think it would have made money. I think it would have done okay. I don't think it would have been the next Star Wars or anything else as far as that, but it would have given another franchise that they could have kept making and made okay money off of it. Instead, this bombed and they lost $100+ million on it. I mean, they lost money on this. And I can say from my personal perspective, as someone that read this in the books, the marketing was trash. When this was coming out, I didn't want to go see it. I said, it doesn't look that good to me, and which is unfair because now having watched it, it's a lot better. After Shadow, but it was kind of thing of, wait a minute, this isn't the book that I read. And see, that's the hardest part of whether it's Lord of the Rings or anything else, is you're taking a long established franchise. You have to show the love to it, and you have to have someone that loves it. And which means in many cases, you can't have the executives all trying to meddle in it and say, well, we're going to do this. And it's that, and that's where I feel the real tragedy is because the first book had everything you needed into it. It would have had a cliffhanger, which, maybe it would have gotten a sequel. Let's assume that it would have. Then that would have brought you to book 2. I mean, the first 3 books are, a trilogy, which is perfect. And then you can bring, and after the first 3 books, it kind of wraps up for that aspect, and then you can go to the next stuff. And then the later books, he has spinoffs, which is fine. But Disney, once they got Star Wars, just stopped caring about this. And,
Well,
and it showed.
there's a few other things you have to look at from my understanding is what is the movie competing with? What other movies are out that is going to grab somebody else's attention? I can go see John Carter, or I can go see the Avengers. I can see John Carter, or I can see Dark Knight Rising. I can see John Connor or Hunger Game, and so forth and so on for that year.
But you know what? That doesn't
down to marketing. If they marketed it, especially to the kids, let's face it. If they had marketed to the youngest audience, because it's only a PG, 13 or whatever rating. If they had marketed to the kids, there would have been a crap ton of, families that the moms or the dads, loved it. Oh, what? Disney's putting it out. Oh, you damn right. I'm taking my kids to see this movie. Sure, we'll go see Avengers and the other movies as well. But, let's face it, this is the whole different sort of genre to, maybe get the kids involved in.
So and Shadow probably remembers this in the 1980s. They used to have blockbuster after blockbuster every 2 weeks.
I remember growing up in the 90s. Summers was the for 3 months you had movie after movie after movie. I get that. I'm not saying that isn't, but I'm just like looking at the movies that came out in 2012 and John Carter. Other than a handful of people my own age, it's not like it does not have the same.
Well, but you remember, you have to put that down to
marketing. Had they put commercials, had they put the Happy Meal toys, the marketing really dictates what it's going to make in the box office. If you don't market it, it could be a crap movie, and there have been a ton of them that they marketed the hell out of, and that drove the audience to the theaters.
Oh, okay. So
I can't even remember seeing a single commercial.
So let's see what came out. They had the Avengers, Dark Knight Rises, Hunger Games, Skyfall, The Hobbit, Twilight Saga, Amazing Spider-Man, Brave, Ted, and Madagascar 3. I mean, looking at it in there.
How many of those were Disney? A couple.
Well, Disney was the Avengers. Brave was Disney. But my point.
Madagascar, Journey to the Center of Earth. I mean,
I'm looking at what happened there is you weren't necessarily competing against everyone in there. So, normally it happens. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the dates here. When you look at it, because I really much that time I was out there. I was in Afghanistan when this was coming out. So let's look at this. You had Men in Black 3, which completely panned. So I'm looking at what's there. There, you have some of these things, but Snow White and the Huntsman, Madagascar 3, which is aiming at a different age group for the most part. Prometheus, okay, we all remember how bad that was. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, yep, we all remember how bad that was.
Wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad.
Well, I mean, a lot of these were coming out in June. So July, you had Amazing Spider-Man. Okay, that's fine. The Dark Knight Rises, which admittedly I watched a few months after. I was like, okay.
Oh man, that movie was sold. When that Batman Dark Knight Rises, because that's the one with the Joker in it with Heath Ledger.
No. 2012.
No.
That was that.
Yeah,
that
you
was
mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
That was Bane.
You mentioned how this was in production troubles and stuff like that. Do you think that they didn't market it, and they were just said, "Well, let's just not. We don't think we're going to make our money on this now. Maybe and then they just didn't market it because they didn't think they're going to make their money on it, and then we're able to write it off as a loss." Do you think maybe that was because they also didn't they put it out in like March or something like that?
It was definitely.
When did it feels like I remember? I know I saw this movie in theater.
Here's what gets me: is Skyfall came out November 9th, and it was in the top 10. Twilight came out November 16th. So,
This
to
movie
say
came out in
that,
February. The release date in the United States was March 9th.
okay, that's kind of a
Movies in
death
March.
knell, because that tells you right there they weren't that interested in making money off of it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they really wanted to, they could have pushed it back to, a lot of times what was coming out in December.
Summer or Christmas time now, right?
Yeah.
Are the big ones.
Well, they had Jack Reacher, which how many times has that had stuff in there?
God, that was a horrible movie.
Well, what I'm looking at it, and let's see, looking at the only other thing they would have had to compete with was The Hobbit, which came out about 2 weeks before Christmas. They could have waited and produced it during Christmas. I think what it really came down to, it's like Mark was saying, is they once, and this by my understanding, this was to compete so they could aim at boys. As soon as they got Marvel and Star Wars, they said, you know what, we don't need a third one trying to attract boys. And this one, of course, went through development hell. They were done. They said, okay, we don't have to market it, just put it out there. Let's
fulfill our contractual obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I hate to keep harping on marketing, but if they wanted it to do better, they could have made it do better. I mean, they literally could have done anything they wanted to make this as big as they wanted, and they backed Marvel and Star Wars, and look what happened with at least Star Wars.
I'll say Marvel movies are still, for better or worse, it depends on how you want to look at it, Marvel movies are still breaking at least the 1 billion mark.
Sure.
Well, somewhat, even with Star Wars, I don't think they've made their money back.
With Star Wars, I don't think so either.
Marvel, I think $4 billion for a franchise in 20
years.
They paid
what? How many billion? Would they pay like $4 billion?
It was $4 billion just for the franchise, and then you have to do like $500 million for each movie, or something like that. Yeah, it was. They're barely making any of the money back, and you can see this where they're cutting back, and the quality of all of their shows have been going down. But to be fair, this was a different.
We're talking about a movie that was created. It was based on the original. First one was The Princess of Mars, which was made in 1912. So from the movie came out in 2012. So that's 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the symbology by that is kind of cool to its own right.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. Again, I think that Shadow and our point was Disney didn't know what to do with this, for number one. I think this is the problem. Sometimes we get the creatives not actually reading the books and understanding the love of it. Whether people like this or not, this is the kind of stuff for pulp that was brought in to Flash Gordon, which was brought into Star Wars. Those elements are brought in.
Let's talk about a few of the other ones, like Flash Gordon. Flash Gordons have had a couple of these other shows have had multiple different, not shows, these works of fiction, multiple different variations over the last from whenever to. Flash Gordons have had three TV shows, one of them with live action people, two of them with cartoons. Tarzan has had a handful of movies, a handful of cartoons.
All they had done was every time they had a commercial of John Carter and just said, from the creator of Tarzan, boom, Edgar Rice Burroughs, boom. Now John Carter, that would have brought so much nostalgia.
I think the problem is, part of the problem is yes, I agree. Marketing was they screwed the duck. Whatever variation of that term you want to use, they did a horrible job of marketing. It even says in the Wikipedia, they even admit it was their worst marketing. One of their worst marketing whatever.
Disaster.
Right. Over the last 100 years, 100 plus now because it's 2023. There hasn't been a John Carter of this, John Carter of that, John Carter of what. There have been books, there's been comic books, but can you name one other movie, cartoon?
There was apparently an Italian version.
Oh, well, Italians.
And there was a black and white John Carter that was way different. He was basically, I think, an astronaut. I saw that back in the day.
I guess
you
was a
mentioned the
variation
comic
of
book
this.
stuff. If you actually look into the comic book world, it's massive. It's absolutely massive.
I
all based on, believe it or not, mostly Deja Thoris. They've got her on every cover of probably 100 different,
Well, she's hot.
yeah, and trust me, the comic
Herself.
book artist made her hotter than she was in the movie. And I've got the old Marvel Comics complete collection of the 1977 John Carter Warlord of Mars that it was just the beginning of the comic book fandom.
I will bring up one other thing. Disney wouldn't even use the word of Mars. So, people didn't even know, if you weren't even familiar with it, it's not even like you could look up a book. You like John Carter.
You get the actor from ER.
The character.
No, that's fair. I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's fair.
You're like, John Carter, what is this? And then, of course, we're
even
talking
the movie
about marketing.
Posters are lame. Have you seen the movie posters? It's just the symbol, and redness.
Well, the red plane. I get where I get the imagery that they were trying to do. John Carter with red, the red planet, Mars. I get it. They should have thrown more stuff into it. I'm not saying that they shouldn't.
All we're saying is that you could have said of Mars,
right,
and then say, anyway. I think we've beat enough of the marketing. Let's start talking about the movie.
I was just trying to give Jackie a chance. He's literally almost ready. I hope to join in. Can we before we start with the usual? I want to address chat because I noticed Cal was talking about someone makes minis for gaming. I actually own almost every different brand of minis for John Carter, all the way back to 1977's lead miniatures from Heritage Miniatures, which are, believe it or not, a sealed package of John Carter miniatures, which will contain 4 miniatures lead from back in the day. You can't get them for less than about $75 to $100. Okay, a single lead version of one of the Green Martians, you're looking at $75 for those. There are other companies that do John Carter Bronze Age miniatures. We did a great review on them. Let me just show one off real quick because.
Well, he's doing.
Okay, he's should do. The other thing is Modifius. Now, of course, this was years later.
They resin miniatures, sure.
And they're doing the STLs as well. Oh, see, and that's so cool right there. I mean,
this is the one Jackie painted.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I mean, that's so cool right there.
I mean, I think it's the one Jackie painted, but yeah, they may, and their miniatures are pretty affordable. I put a fancy base on it, but this model right here is about $35, I think, for the Thoat and the Rider, and they make everything. We did a bunch of reviews on them. There are other companies out there that make them in various scales. The ones Modifius put out were resin, and that was back in the early days of resin printing. So most of those probably don't even exist anymore just because of the fragility and things like that, and they won't last. These are metal miniatures.
I'm going to say this much is that Modifius is now selling the STLs as well, so that helps.
So, okay, that'll keep them around. I didn't know that. Yeah. Good on them, because those are really good. The images are phenomenal. So if you're into gaming, and of course Modifius made the one of the few John Carter games out there, but I own every other John Carter game from 1977's TSR production. Heritage Models put out 2. I've got the box game from SPI. There's been a lot of John Carter products over the years to keep the fans and the franchise alive, especially in the gaming world. So it's not done with. We're just going to have to wait until our kids are older to go and see it again.
It'll happen. Talking about the marketing on this, I'm moving away from the marketing. I'm moving more to, because I'm waiting for Jack. I am waiting for Jack before we get into some of the questions.
Okay.
I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking about this, and there was a TV show in the early 2000s called Farscape, and if I'm remembering correctly, the lead character in that one was John Carter.
No, I think it was John something else. It was.
I will verify, but it kind of had the same. It was an astronaut instead of a cowboy, And
Well, I mean, but that's been true of, Buck Rogers, and we have to remember all these things came out. This is the precursor to all of those. So, when we say nothing's new in the world, well, that's somewhat true. This is the whole thing that comes into it, of bringing it in there. It's I think that those are the things that we sometimes forget about. Is it's just like whenever people complained about Shakespeare. Oh, it's so cliched, and it has all these tropes. Yes, he created those.
Yeah.
You sometimes have to look back at the very beginning to understand where things evolved to. It reminds me of years ago, all the people talking about whether you like Tolkien or not. Just as another example, he opened up science fiction to the mainstream. My grandmother read Tolkien, and she talked about how great of a book it is. And that's the things that come into this is,
right. You were right on the name. It was John Crichton, but
yes.
yeah. But it's
Crichton, close enough.
Carter, if you're not really thinking about it.
Well, I'm going to mention this much. And I don't know how Shadow is. The first thing that really sucked me into the John Carter universe from the books, now we'll talk about the books while we wait for Jackie here, was the fact that it was one of the few that actually talked about gravity and the differences in gravity.
Oh, where Mars, yeah. The reason why John Carter was as strong as he was is he was from Earth, which was a heavy gravity world, and Mars is a low gravity world. Therefore, his bone density and his muscle structure made him Superman.
Yep.
It's the whole Krypton versus Earth scenario.
And that was one of the things that got me, is because it was one of the, I'm not saying everything was, perfect, but looking at 1912 and H.G. Wells was another one. These were our precursors to science fiction. They actually used some science. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't do the other stuff, like we had the discussion last night about. But I mean, but you're like, wow, because everyone else, if you watch it, they don't really talk about gravity. Gravity's the same no matter where you go, Star Trek or whatever else. This was the first one that said, oh, if you're going to Mars, you're going to be 3 to 4 times as strong as if you're on Earth. And
3 to 4 is he was literally like the Hulk. I mean, if you compare the abilities, it was like watching a skinny white guy version of the Hulk. Banner with all the strength, but not the big size. That stuff was just ridiculously, OP. I mean, I guarantee if I was to play the John Carter role-playing game, there's no way I'm leaping, what was that, a quarter mile? I mean, it was just.
I think in the book he could jump 50 or 60 feet. But
hundreds, if not 1,000 feet. That one time.
I know.
She thinks I could make blood. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't mind it so much. I mean, the movie, the entire time, I'm just waiting for him to grab a sword and yell, "By the power of Grayskull!" I know it's 2 different franchises, but there was enough of it where it felt like it could be,
And that's the whole point of it. If you went for H.G. Wells, which he did more of the dystopian kind of style science fiction, and then you look, I mean, whether it's the, there may have been some hope in there, but whether it was Dr. Moreau or the the War of the World, yeah, I mean, but then you get this one, and you go, okay, this was for kids to sit down and read and enjoy. That was this was the kind of stuff that you would read like when you're Jack's age or my son's age, and like, oh, this is awesome.
Speak of the devil.
Yep, exactly.
Yes, I'm here now. I couldn't find another picture, and I don't want to use the basic one, so here I am.
That's just creepy as hell.
Yes.
Okay, as long as you know.
Yes.
Now, Jack?
Yes.
What did you think of the movie?
It was good.
It was good, yes. Yes, no?
Mm-hmm.
You can almost sense a little bit of enthusiasm in your voice. You might want to,
you got to tempt that enthusiasm.
You feeling okay?
What?
Nothing. Just giving you a hard time. You actually sound like you enjoyed the movie.
I did.
And
actually.
I was there, so I know.
Yes, I did.
Did your dad force you to enjoy the movie?
I've seen this movie several times.
Gotcha. All right. So we're gonna bypass some of the other conversations we've had for the last 30
34
minutes
minutes.
and move forwards. All right, starting with you, Shadow. Except for John Carter, because that is an easy answer, very easy answer to this question. Did you have a favorite character?
He's going to be probably saying the same one I am, but go for it, Shadow.
There's so many. I was literally, trying to narrow it down. I'm gonna have to go with Tarj Tarkas. I just, you know, even though he wasn't there, Willem Dafoe wasn't, we didn't get to see him. I was just picturing, the Green Goblin scenes and things like that. And, he did a great, he just, he got into it, it was, I mean, there are a lot of second or tertiary characters that I really loved. Cantos Can, I was so glad when I heard that name, from the books, I'm just like, yes, even though he had the tiniest of parts in it, and I had to, tell my son, pay attention, pay attention. This part's awesome. He's, take me hostage, take me hostage.
Yeah.
That was that was awesome. But I'm going to go with Tarj Tarkas.
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay, Shadow, we're going to mention this from the very first book. Who was your favorite character? Because we got to compare the two. Since I know
I've never read the book, so you guys got me over the barrel on this one.
No, I'm asking Shadow because I know he's in particular just loves this. Who was your favorite character in the first book?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Oh, that's fine. There's so many. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked, Edgar Rice Burroughs. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that was, it's been done since then, but I think the way this worked out, that it was, it worked better than every time someone has tried to put H.P. Lovecraft into an H.P. Lovecraft movie or story or something like that. This just felt, just awesome.
All right. Don't know what happened to Jack, but I'll ask him when he returns. Ominow, who is your favorite character?
Wait. We got Mark there. You got to go in the circle.
No, I have a plan. I have.
Oh, okay.
It works.
Mine has always been Tarj Tarkas. I just love the four-armed Martians. It doesn't matter. John Carter was fine. It's like, okay, you're the typical, but man, I just love that there's a great image by Michael Whalen, and I think they did a pretty good job of it, where he's fighting and John Carter's to his back, and he's sitting there with his four swords, hacking across white apes and the plant man. And I have loved him since the very beginning just because it is so cool. I just loved four-armed, monstrous things, and he was he was a near equivalent of John Carter, even though he wasn't quite as strong. 15 feet tall. I mean, come on. How can you not love that kind of character? Now, in the movie, he's probably, 9 or 10 feet tall instead of the
maybe
14
12,
or 15. But, I mean, come on. They're just fantastic for that. And in the movie, I hate saying it is.
And if you think about it, for one of the first depictions of a Martian or an alien, that was pretty, imaginative. All the way down to the cone, Shrek-like ears, which I'm going to let Becky, go more into that later. But yeah, just.
All right. Well, since Jackie is back,
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Mark, who was your favorite character?
I'm gonna have to the main green alien guy. I can't remember his name, but everybody else has been saying he was the best. He was the one calling him Virginia right from the get go, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So yeah, he was my favorite. He was funny.
I think everyone's gonna have the same.
Good. Yeah, I would say so. I thought you were gonna say that little ugly ass dog.
You know what? I still love Woola.
I like
Woola's
dog.
We're gonna have to have a whole little discussion about Woola. But
we should have an entire episode of just Woola.
Oh God, that dog was amazingly. It had a lot of the whole time I was looking at it, I was like, God, that dog looks like a pit bull. I love it.
I don't know if Jack. Well, I know Jack's read the books too, but Willa was supposed to be one of the fastest that they had out there. The whole thing was that he made friends with it by being nice, unlike the rest of them. He was supposed to guard him and said, "If you leave, it's gonna kill you." And it's like, nope, he made it friends. And then later on, John Carter taught the Tharks on how to be nice to their mounts. And then they worked even better from that. And it's like, instead of just beating them, the mounts were like, oh yeah, we'd much rather get you.
When we were in the theater watching this movie, every time Woola was on the screen, he stole the audience's heart. The laughter, every single person was laughing their ass off. It was just something so charming and absurd with his, ludicrous speed. We were just like, the first scenes of showing off his speed. What the, there he is again. There he is again. It's just, they're just, like I said, even Jackie's grandmother, who didn't speak a word of English, sitting in the theater, was laughing her ass off watching, that particular part. It just transcended all language. You could just watch it and just go, that's freaking fast. That's ridiculously fast. And I don't know why I'm laughing so hard, but that big, ugly, lovable, nice monster was just done.
Oh
just
God, yeah. I'd rather have that
perfect.
thing on my side than against me, because when it went into attack mode, it was a beast.
And if you look at in the books, he was too. He was lovable Woola, but Woola saved his butt several times in at least the first.
And look how loyal he was. He knew that dog knew what was going on in that battle where, John says, get out of here. Woola's like, hell no, I'm staying with you, buddy. We're in this thick and thin, I'm gonna bite me some green Martian butt and kick ass and chew bubble gum or whatever. It's just, everything you could want in a big, gigantic, lovably ugly monster. I mean, can you imagine? I hate to bring this up, but can you imagine had they made plush versions of Woola, how many millions of children would have gone to sleep hugging that big ugly fuzzy monster? Even though he wasn't fuzzy, but a stuffed animal of that would have made millions.
They made a stuff. Remember E.T. The E.T. movie?
Yeah. Oh God, I hated it. I hated the movie.
They made one of the biggest toys things that came out of that movie was the stuff and the stuff alien. So yeah, going back to what Shadow was saying, if somebody made a stuffed one of those, yeah, I could see it. Maybe not on every kid's bed, but it would have been one of the top sellers for that movie.
Well, there's so much about all of this. I mean, but Woola, looked different than I had imagined. And it's probably a little bit different than some of the other stuff, but that's fine.
Yeah, because the armor depicted him a little more lizardy and frilly, not hair, but like kind of like
and
tentacles.
I always talked about 3 levels of fangs. That was the whole thing.
Didn't he have the 3 rows of teeth?
I'm looking at it now. He had like 6 or 7 of them in the movie.
Oh, well, that's even worse. That's even better. I think they did it right. I mean, I don't know how he looked in the book, but making him look like a dog, a pit bull, a dog, it was a right move.
It's not, how we imagine it. It's close enough that I have no problems with it. That's the whole point.
All right, young gentleman Jack. By the way, I stole your name for a campaign I'm about ready to jump in.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought you'd enjoy it. I get to play an evil character. Who was your favorite character that was not John Carter?
That is a genuinely very difficult question. Because on one hand, I want to say Woola because I'm contractually obligated to, and it would be a legitimate answer regardless.
Right, I would accept that one.
I did also really like Tars as well. That's the thing. But I'll go with. Wait, hold up. Who has gone so far?
Everybody
Everybody.
but me.
Oh,
Everybody's
I guess I'll
basically
go
picked the
for
same guy. All right, Jack.
I just I just wait
It's all right. It's all right. You know what?
wait
It's all right.
I
Your
wait,
Tar
what?
is a good answer. The dog, I mean not dog. Wooly is a good answer. I'll accept both, mainly because Wooly's not a dog.
Well, you only. I mean, if
mean,
you want to look at main
true,
characters,
but
what does that leave you? That leaves you Sola and
Oh
Beach of
no!
Thorns.
Well, see, I'm looking at. I had two characters I really enjoyed in this campaign, even if one of them was very much just a bit role. Was Brian Cranston, Colonel Powers. When they're every time he's like, well, we need you, and you're going to come with us like it or not, and just the interaction between him and John. Every time John tried to escape the fort, I like. Then again, I'm a big Brian Cranston fan, so I like anything he's in. He was in an episode of Power Rangers. So I like him as an actor and just enjoyed his character for what it was. The other character, but to be completely fair, out of the people on Mars, I'm torn. There was like three people I really enjoyed. The daughter.
Sola,
So not the human, but
the Thark. The Thark is Sola.
Yeah, I liked her. I like her character's growth.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
in the book, she was
very sympathetic character.
she was gifted with which she always had to complain about was having a soft heart, and she'd always complain about it, and they would tell her, you're not like a real Thark. She said, we weren't always like this. Yeah, it's
The other two was basically because I liked them in Rome, because one of them played Julius Caesar and the other one played Mark Antony. That would be James Purefoy, Purefoy. He played Kronos, the Chrono Khan, and the other one is I'm not going to pronounce it, but he was the dad to the Crichton's love interest. I love those two characters, just their interaction on screen, where it was fun. I mean, for being side characters, I thought they had more personality than maybe the main bad guy, and I enjoyed those characters.
The Holy Thurn or the bad Martian guy.
The bad Sabthon.
Okay, yeah, because I mean,
well, there
to
was
be
also
honest,
the father of
everybody
Beach of
in here
Thorns. Yeah.
was on their A game. They
I have
really
nothing.
were.
The actors wise, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying the characters. I'm saying I just think he was a thug. He was a thug he was given the magic gun, and he was a thug. That's why I took from that character.
Mhm.
So,
But the funny thing is they did actually show, and Omen will back me up on this. The main bad guy who got the ninth ray weapon. He and all Martians had this incredible sense of honor and chivalry. He literally, when he handed up his sword, that wasn't like an evil guy doing something. That's the way all Martians are. They have this incredible sense of of what's right and wrong. If you come at me with a sword and I've got a gun, I'm only going to use my sword. I'm not going to use the gun. If you've got a dagger, I'll put down my sword and find a dagger, kind of thing. It's all fair fighting. It's all honorable, because just like the Tharks and their might makes right. Honor makes you honorable, and you have to fight fair, because if you don't, everybody else will just gang up on you and just tear you apart. If you try some underhanded, sneaky thing in a battle or a fight, everybody will turn on you. So I really like the fact that you could kind of see it. I don't know, maybe you saw it, Owen, when he literally handed his sword to Deja Thoris in surrender. That wasn't like a typical bad guy. I'm just going to play the part kind of thing. So I appreciate that. He did have that like look in his eye, like not like I'm pulling one over, but that this is the way we do things.
see, I guess that's my problem because I never read the books, and
You'll get there. You'll get
I
there.
saw the ploy. He's got this secret super
Mhm.
weapon, and I'm going to surrender to get what I want. I don't give you this, even though I still have an ace up my sleeve.
Well, and again, not reading the books is she was betrothed to him to make sure that the two would not fight anymore. I mean, there was a lot to be said for that, and it's that's the thing that it wasn't until the Tharks come in and sort of break the siege of Helium. But yeah, it was one of these things that you don't backtrack on this.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things in there. It's just
I'm going to spend some time.
Welcome to the show. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, like I told
RPG
you.
Grandma is here. Howdy.
I'm going to have to read the books. I'm going to see if I can get at least one of them on Audibles and barrel through it.
Hey, Connell, do you have a subscription to Audible?
Yes. Well,
Okay, so the
I
first
share
3
my
books
hands.
are free. The first 3 books are free if you have an Audible subscription.
I will look into that right now.
I know because I listened to him and I didn't want to pay for any more. but if you go over, it has like the list of the premium. If you have a premium account,
Yeah.
if you have a premium account, they're free. Or it's part of your premium account, and it's the Princess of Mars. What is it? The Gods of Mars, and what's the last one? I can't remember. But yeah, it's.
It's not for free for me, but it's the Princess of Mars, the God of Mars, and the Warlord of Mars. And what I'll do is I'll just get this when I get one free book every month, and I'll just
wait a minute. Are you sure? Go look at because there's one of them in there. Because remember, it's not just a lot of times they'll have different authors or there's different speakers. A lot of them will have it for free on there if you have an Audible subscription, which is what I'm.
I get what you're saying. I'll have to look into it later on. But no, I will listen to it.
Sure.
As of right now, I'm listening to Stephen Hawkins, and it's putting me to sleep. So I might have to change up here soon. All right, Jack has disappeared in and out. Sorry about the noise in the background. My daughter is being helpful.
I mean, if I could send it off to you, I would. But let's see.
No, that's fine. Okay. What was your favorite scene? That's a good question. And I am pretty sure I don't know if all 3 of you guys, Jack, 4 of you guys will have the same answer. I think mine's going to be a little bit different than yours, but that's just fine. I'll start with you, Shadow.
That's a toughie, man. That's a toughie. It's honestly, I'm gonna have to go with the monkey, the big white ape fight scene. That was it's that or the other fight scene where John Carter literally makes a mountain of dead Martians by the time he's done. I mean, you could. We were watching and I'm like, you can see the mountain of dead bodies from space when they show that scene from the airship, and you can see this mountain of bodies piling up. The John Carter is just, I mean,
that is an interesting way to work through your post stress disorder is to kill a bunch of aliens. I mean, because if you're watching, I know what scene you're talking about because he's reliving coming home to his wife being dead.
Mm-hmm.
He's learning I'm like, so him killing all those aliens is a great big therapy.
But that wasn't true of the book. I don't think that he had a family from the book. So
yeah, I know. I kind of was wondering that too, Omen, because it's been a good long time since I read the first book.
So the weird thing,
but it worked. It worked.
Yeah, but the weird thing with him was he doesn't remember being anyone except pretty much John Carter, and it sounded like he had lived for hundreds, if not longer, of years, and no one knew who he was. There's some weird things about John Carter, and that was part of it. If you look at it, it's like he doesn't remember his childhood. He's been around forever as a 30-year-old. Yeah, it's kind of weird from that aspect. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, Mark, what was your favorite scene?
It's going to be either the arena scene or the when they're approaching one of the final battles when all the what Tharks, right? Is that the four-armed alien? I've
Yeah.
never read the book. I keep
The,
trying.
the green aliens.
Okay, when they all start piling out, rushing out of the airship, and they're all on their mounts and launching the attack on the city. Either one of those scenes were probably my faves.
I think my daughter's cleaning the bathroom. I don't want to stop her. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, it's not pigsty in there, but I mean,
You know what? If she's going to clean it, don't ever stop your son from cleaning the house.
It's like we're doing this, and all of a sudden I'm like, I think it's just cleaning the bathroom.
I'll say this much: is my friends going to college? They said that during finals, none of them wanted to study, so the house was the cleanest it ever was during that time period.
Oh, that stress. Yeah, no, I get it. I got drunk, but I do get it. All right, Mark, that was yours. Yeah, the fight scenes in that movie were just for what they were. Were really good. I don't. Going back to Jack's pick with the Star Wars Attack of the Clones, and you had that arena scene where it's a mixture between clones, not clones, and androids and the Jedi. It was just, I don't like that. I never liked that scene. It seemed too clunky. But when they did the arena scene in this one, or even when he was fighting, period, it was. Somebody knew what maybe not necessarily what a large scale battle would look like, because there's only fairly few movies out there that have actually done that correctly. I think Waterloo is one of them. But it wasn't as clunky as they have been in other movies. So I get that. I do get that.
I'm going to say my favorite scene. I think it's the very beginning. Is when not the very beginning, when he gets off for Mars and he finds the babies, because that actually is, because that's actually kind of what happened in there. That's when they begin to see him, and that's one. But then the other one I liked was when he's, of course, it's over the top, but it's when the two ships are in combat and they're shooting at each other, and then they clash, and then the Tharks are betting on who's going to win. Well, and then at the end is, once John Carter is jumping back and forth, they start going out and start shooting. That's in the book where they start shooting at them, try and go through them. And of course, Deja Thoris at that point is complaining a little bit different. But yeah. But yeah, that's the part that I enjoyed about the thing. Is not, I'm not saying that the other parts aren't good, but man, I love that whole thing where you actually see that the Tharks were known for being expert marksmen, and they would take out the whatever was it. It's not that they had the giant firepower, but they had that kind of thing, and you can understand where it came from. So those are the things that I enjoyed for the scenes. Was the beginning part, basically, just because that brought back such nostalgia of him trying to learn and how to maneuver, and then you're in a completely alien world. You see the little babies. You're like, what's going on? And then they actually kept really true to it, which is if the ones didn't hatch, they shot them. That was the other thing about it.
Or that they were too weak.
Yeah, well, it was too weak. And then, like they said, is before the White Apes. I wish that they had done that part from the book where they had done where he tried to escape and he faces down a white ape and he gets saved by Woola, going in there, because the White Apes were about as big as the Tharks, but they were they were about as strong as John Carter. That's one of the things I liked about the White Apes from that.
Apologies for all of that technical difficulties, thankfully, for a bit.
Actually, you came in at the best timing. I got a question for you. What was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene, that is difficult. I'm probably going to say either the opening sequence, the ending sequence, or yeah, it'd be one of those two. Which one?
What do you mean by the ending sequence? What do you mean by the ending sequence?
The thing when he goes
the
back.
opening was Omen's answer. Oh, the whole. Go ahead.
When he go the whole part of when he goes back to Earth and trying to find another amulet, that whole thing, that part. That's what I meant.
That was pretty clever. I remember when I watched it the first time, and then again today, the whole springing of the trap after trying to find another Thurn on Earth with no luck. He that was kind of genius. I don't know if that was actually in the books because it's been so long, or if that was just something they came up with to use his death. But that was pretty awesome.
It was.
I think, actually, I don't think I got two favorite scenes, and they're going to be weird for you guys, but deal with me. Like I said, his interaction with the Colonel, I just love scenes like that. The bar scene to the fort scene. If you could just push that into one big scene, that was my favorite few minutes of the film. Just humans being humans always amuse me in that particular way. The other one was, okay, I'm not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Where the hell am I? Let me push up. Boom, boom. Wait, something's not right here. As he's slowly learning how to walk again, and then he jumps. The whole build up to him figuring himself out on Mars, I enjoy it. I enjoy that aspect of it. The fight scenes were good. The conversations he had with the princess, the Torix, and all that, it was all really good. When the scenes were more about him than it was about the world around him, I find it a little bit more interesting, mainly because I don't know anything about John Carter. I've seen 101 Alien movies. I've seen 101 Coliseum / battles, but I don't know. I've not seen that many. Your timing is amazing.
Thank you.
You want to say hi to people?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I mean, I have one of those at home too.
But I like I said, the scenes about him, I thought were. So she's up for sale for a low price of what the fuck was I thinking?
No, she's cleaning your house. Never, ever, never knock that. I always make sure I praise my son whenever he does that. I've had the whole bathroom cleaned.
You take 2 hours off, just 2 hours. Anyways, but the scenes about him, I thought a little bit more interesting. Not the other scenes were bad. It's just I've seen variations of the other scenes 101 different times. Sorry, my train of thought. So, who do you think was? I mean, this is going to be such a low. This is such a dumb question. It was an easy answer. Who do you think? Who was your favorite villain as person? Saad or the alien Overwatcher guy?
The Therns, the Holy Therns.
Yeah, the Holy Therns.
I always like when the villain is bald.
So
We're going to start with Jack.
Yeah, I'll start with Jack.
All right. So having your antagonist be bald is one of the greatest literary decisions a man can ever make while writing a story, because everyone knows that when your villain is bald, that means he's more evil. I was gonna try to go longer with this, but I'm finding it quite difficult to find more ridiculous things to say about why your villain being bald is quite literally absolutely perfect in every single measurable regard.
Okay. No. Just to follow up on you have Klaus Schwab, you have Lex Luthor, you have
Dr. Evil. Come on, let's not forget him.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many there that I it's hard to argue with you about that, because Lex Luthor is probably the greatest of all of the normal villains.
DC villain.
Well, maybe Schwab. I think he's a bit worse.
Well, no. Carl Schwab is just Blofeld come to real life. That's all.
True. Very correct.
Sorry. I mean, even looks like it. You just add like 40 years to the character, and you like, oh my God, it's Klaus Schwab. Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, just if your villain is bald, you've made a fantastic decision. That's what I'll say.
I like there was the bald. You bring up Lex Luthor, and there's a scene from the Justice League movie. Was Zach the latest one with Ben Affleck and all of them?
Hello?
And Flash is like, "What's your superpower?" He's like, "I'm rich." And every time I think of Lex, I'm evil and I'm rich. You know, that's his superpower. Oh, he's a genius. He's a 12th level, whatever genius, however they make it sound. But being bald and is a bad. That's. But he doesn't have the twirling mustache. You have to have a twirling mustache to be truly evil.
I need to get me one of those.
I'm going to say this much:
We all need them.
it's you're talking about that, but for my, you're talking about my favorite villain. Was it Tarj Hajoras, Hajoras or whatever? The other Thark.
Oh yeah. He was kind of scary.
I mean, I liked the Tharks better. The Tharks were always the ones that appealed to me in the books, and I liked them better in the movie. It's, just because it's more alien rather than being the typical thing. Like a particular. No.
Penguin wasn't truly bald. He had the crown. I don't. Which, if I told multiple people, if my top goes away and all I have is like the Patrick Stewart crown, I'm just going to shave the entire fucking thing off. It's like wearing jogging pants. It's giving up on life. So sorry, things going wrong here. So you gave your answer there, Omanel?
Yeah.
All right, Mark.
Probably the Thurns, the main bad guy. Just once again, he's just playing the part right. You love to hate him. Pulling all the strings in the back, behind the scenes, and in the background. What was his? Matei Shang was his name, I believe, the main bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my pick.
All right. Shadow.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to. It's tough. I mean, all of them were the you had the three bad guys, and you had the three classic archetypes in there. You had the might makes right. Just the just pure bully. Strength is all that matters with the Thark. You had the Holy Thurn, who was the mastermind of everything, and then you had the poor schlub in the middle, who had things gone differently. Who knows? He might have actually been a good guy. Could have changed it. At the end, last minute, or something like that.
Oh, what percentage the phone at?
But I'm going to go with the Holy Thurn. I think he was he knew he was in kind of a what you could consider a schlocky movie, but he's been in so much stuff. He could have nah, I'm not bringing my career down by being in this
Mark
cornball
Strong.
movie. Yeah. And instead he's like, no, you know what? I am gonna play this to the nines. I am gonna do, I'm just gonna, bring this up a notch, class the hell out of this movie. And he did.
I'm going to say this much is Dominic West did a good job for what he was. I mean, I'm not knocking any of them.
No, yeah.
And it's not thanks to Starks, but you know how autocorrect does. Anyway, but I really did enjoy and Laura Mama and I are going to argue about this about in the books. No, it was the black Martians that were the Drow, because they lived underground.
Yeah.
They were hidden and no one knew about them. But everyone knew
No,
about
they
the Tharks.
didn't live underground. I thought they came from Venus or Jupiter. They were actually starfaring.
No, they went inside the center of the planet. Remember, with Isis.
No.
Isis was there.
No, I thought they came from another planet. I could have swore they were they were like, they used their airship, whatever technology, and they descended from the skies, and everybody would, just lose their freaking minds, practically rather, commit suicide than,
No,
have to
they
deal
were
with.
in like the center of the Earth or the center of Mars. If you actually go back
Really?
and read it,
I-
yeah, because they have to talk
That's-
about they had to go down and ISIS. Anyway, but we're complete.
Okay.
But she's talking about
Okay.
Tharks. Like, no, Tharks are not Drow. Tharks are more like your goblin orc race that we were used to, and John
Mhm.
Carter turned them good, But what
Or at least
what
some of them.
well, that's true. Well, Thars got 100,000 Martians together, which was an incredible number. Yeah, exactly like Laura says, their ships could turn into submarines. Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to keep up on that because somebody else isn't.
I'm trying to. I also have a daughter that's kind of bouncing around, and I'm trying to pay attention to her.
My son just stole my my charging, so
I mean this playfully. I think the true villain of the movie was no, not that character. Where's his name? Tardos Mar,
Oh,
You're talking
Or-
about the
the father,
mhm.
because he was forcing his daughter to marry the asshat.
no,
yeah.
you're trying to take this, and this whole thing is you have to go back and look at how cultures are. You marry who your father tells you to marry, not who you fall in love with. And guess what? And if you look at those arranged marriages, what is their divorce rate?
Well, in
Yeah.
some countries, if they try to get divorced, they lose their head.
Well, I can tell you this much: being in Afghanistan, it's not like you think. It's not like you're told by feminists. Your mother determines if you're allowed to marry the girl, and your father will basically kick you out if you don't follow her advice. I mean,
Okay.
But no, the Holy Thurn. I mean, Mark Strong plays such a great a villain. I've seen him play one,
Well,
maybe two
yeah, wasn't he a
characters.
Bond villain at one time?
She looks like a Bond villain.
I'm pretty sure he played a Bond villain.
He was in Kingsman. He was Lestro in the Green Lantern movie. He played Lord Henry Blackwood in a Sherlock Holmes movie.
Oh yeah, he was great in that.
I mean, the guy who's had a great career mainly as a villain. Him playing a Bond villain, it wouldn't surprise me. I just don't remember him in any of the recent Bonds. Doesn't mean he wasn't a Bond villain during the Pierce Brosnan era. So we're all like looking really quick. Was it? No.
No, I'm actually looking for a John Carter of Mars hardback, volume 1 through 10, because all my paperbacks are falling apart.
Yeah. We might have to do that movie later on. Oh my
which
god.
one?
Robin Hood.
Which one?
Either
Flynn,
the
the
Russell
only one?
Crowe, either the Russell Crowe one, or there's another one that came out in the '90s that wasn't Kevin Costner. That's really
Costner.
good.
Oh.
I don't. I like that movie. I just don't like him in that movie. But anyways, back to this movie. So if not knowing the books, and it feels like you 3, 4 technically know the books more than I do, and
Hey,
plus,
Well, Mark says he's never read them, right, Mark?
all right.
Now, the only Burroughs I've ever read, I think, is Tarzan. I had an anthology of Tarzan stories I've read, but other than that, I can't think of any Burroughs stories that I've read.
Okay, so let me phrase the question this way. Because I don't think a campaign like this would be a one shot. I think this would have to be at least, a 1 through 5th level or however that works with different systems, more than just one time. How would you start this off? How would you make your players Martians between the Thrones and the other ones, or how would you get this going if you're going to run a campaign in this world?
Who's going to go first?
I will start with you, Oma, now.
Everyone starts off as Red Martians, and part of the reason is that I want them to explore stuff as they move through. Very similar to how we joke about Mage's Musings. You don't really get the races interacting with each other until John Carter comes around. When you get the yellow men of Mars, the black men of Mars, the red men of Mars, the green men of Mars, you don't get them all working together until when John Carter becomes the Jednak of Jedaks. Before then, they're all fighting with each other, and I think that it's just like players picking something. It's like, look, if you're going to play a Red Men of Mars, you're going to understand how everything starts interacting. You're going to look at the Green Men of Mars as your enemies. There's no guilt about killing them because they're completely brutal and everything else, and you start working your way through there, and then once you do that, then we'll move you forward, and then you can start playing post John Carter is probably what I would do after that. Because for me, at least, I don't want the players, unless they really want to be in the same time frame, to be outclassed by my NPCs. I want you to create your own world and move forward from there. So that's the way that I would do it. Is now, if everyone's read the books and everything, great. I don't have any problems with it. But most people, I found this when I was 10 years old at the birthday party for the kid I punched in the stomach. Sorry about that, dude. That was on me. Anyway, he was the one that gave me the book, and it wasn't because of the book. And that, I think it was it Thuvia of Mars or something like that, the 10th book. And my mother sat down and she read it with me, and I read all the John. After that, I couldn't get enough. I had to read all the John Carter Mars, and I had the Michael Whalen covers where my 4th grade teacher would look at me and like, are you allowed to read that? Or 5th grade, and you're like, are you allowed to read that? Like, it's classic. It's almost like 100 years old or whatever it was, 60 years old. It's a classic thing. And they're like, and in fact, many of the teachers, at least the male teachers I knew, were like, I remember reading that book. And kind of like the knowingly, wink and a nod, unlike the crybabies we have for teachers now. Anyway, so we did that, and but that's the way that I would do it. Is either you're going to be before John Carter or you're going to be post John Carter, but you're not going to be in the main era unless the players really want to, and you're going to be in the post John Carter era if you are if everyone knows the world and things like that. If they've all read the books, so yeah, let's go play this, then I would. That's the way I would do it. And just so anyone, I know that Legion of Myth always argues about that. You can go all the way back to the white box D&D, and they had green Martians in it, damn it. So when I hear no laser weapons and all this other crap, you just don't know your Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, that's my little thing.
All right. Shadow, you want to go next?
No, I want Omen to go next.
I mean, Omen just went.
Mark.
I mean, we're going to say Mark or Jackie, depending on which order we're going in.
I know what. Mark is next, then you.
Okay, then let Mark go. Then me, then you or Jackie, and then you. I just like going in a circle. I don't know.
You're weird. I like, I'll do the star every once in a while. I'll see who's ever jumping at the question. All right, Mark, how would you run this as a one shot? Not one shot, but how would you start this off as a campaign, I should say?
I don't know all the mythology. I have to read up on that some, but I was thinking in my head maybe have some type of scenario where when the characters figure out what type of characters are going to play, maybe they're in some type of ship and maybe they're traveling somewhere, or maybe they're prisoners being transported somewhere. Something happens to the ship and they crash, and it's a matter of survival. They're in the wilds of Mars somewhere, and it's a matter of survival, and they have to start working together and form a group that way and do the things to become successful. And then after that, they decide to become an adventuring group, something like that, instead of the meet in the tavern scenario. But that was just my first thought. I don't know.
All right. Shadow?
Honestly, I'd start them on Earth as Earthlings, depending on how many people we're talking about. Okay, because believe it or not, I could run an entire Edgar Rice Burroughs, campaign, going from Tarzan, Journey to the Center of the Earth. Even Cave Girl could make an appearance.
9.
I knew you'd get a kick out of that, Jackie. All the way to Carson of Venus, because I could see doing like Mark you said about a ship. I could see, if you guys have ever read any of the other stuff out there in TV land, because I know everybody here what they've gone with. In Carson of Venus, Carson actually gets in a spaceship from Earth, more of a torpedo or a rocket, but he's trying to get to Mars, but he ends up on Venus instead. And I could see, running the full gamut of, maybe, doing some stuff, Journey to the Center of the Earth, because they're trying to get the right minerals to build the rocket ship. Ended up, popping out in Africa, bumping into not necessarily Tarzan, but some of the stuff from Tarzan, finally making their way back, making the ship, all that sort of stuff. And then, trying to get to Mars, but end up on Venus or vice versa, because both Mars and Venus in Burroughs, worldview had, people very different than humans. But surprisingly enough, he had that immortality thing going in both Carson of Venus and Mars, where the humans and the other people lived a lot longer than we do here on Earth or ever have on Earth, to crazy lengths of time. And maybe, running the full, tour of all the different, Edgar Rice Burroughs things in a, a pulpy sort of, long-winded campaign.
Okay.
Because you get dinosaurs, you get, giant gorillas, you get regular gorillas, you get aliens of all kinds, because both John Carter and Carson have a lot of different critters that we didn't get to see in the John Carter movie. We didn't get to see the bants, which are 8-legged Martian lions, crazy ass things. The plant men, the other lizard creatures. What were those things?
The ones with the heads where they would come off and they would.
Yes. Oh my God, that was crazy. I remember in the DC Comics version of John Carter, I read that as a kid, and it gave me freaking nightmares. Imagine a race of beings that are human, kind of human-like heads, right, with little tiny tentacle legs that crawl up onto a human body with no head, and they just sort of attach themselves and then use the human headless slaves to walk around. It was, oh my God, it was so creepy as a kid.
And then the other part is, they had the giant bugs and a few other things in there. I mean,
and the birds. I forget what those giant pterodactyl-like things were.
Yep.
Yeah, the crabhead dudes, Laura. You know what I'm talking about. Those things were crazy, creepy.
Jack?
The masterminds of Mars, I think they were called.
Yes.
That would. I know you're not exactly a DM yet. You're a DM in training. If you're going to do, if you're going to run your, let me hold that up again. I'll enlarge the screen.
No, there's just a bunch of different
okay
monsters that they have in there that I'm going through because I bought the cards.
Or were they the chessmen?
Well, there was the chessmen. Well, but I mean, there were several different monsters that like he's talking about that I'm trying to find out. There was the apps. The apps were one of those I just loved.
Oh yeah.
There's the I'm trying to find out where they are, but anyway.
So it was.
But those are but some of these are just really cool to look at. And to be fair, the more I read stuff, the less that I begin to realize that they're actually, sometimes they just didn't describe them as much as you think that they did, which gave you a lot of artistic freedom to really go off on it. And that's part of the reason I like that. But yeah, the plant men with the one eye, anyone that goes to Michael Whalen's site, he has what he drew on there, and that's what I grew up with as a kid. I know that that there were a few more out there, but man, the visuals he does are just so fantastic for what Michael Whalen does. And I highly recommend anyone that loves this stuff. To me, he's my. Even though I know that Frank Frazetta did some stuff for this, and maybe a few other famous ones, but the color palette and everything else, it just screams. Not that I said that you always put it on the screen there, Connell, because you might lose some stuff. But
Okay, I was just trying to be nice.
No.
Yeah,
Some of
my
them are in there. I
collection
may
of
send you a
paperback-
picture from it. But you just have to be judicious in what you allow. But Michael Whalen, I grew up with so much of that, and he described exactly what was in the book, and it was just so great. When these, if you go, I'll send you the link to it. But he also did a lot of the Elric stuff. But man, if you can find his.
I will look at it later time. I probably, for copyright reasons, I should probably leave it alone for the most part. Going back to you, Jack, if you're going to run your buddies through a Mars campaign of the John Carter thought processing, how would you do it?
The way I would do it, if I had a gun to my head and was forced to, would be to just have like a group of people that exist on this world. I don't know. I know probably a bit more than you, but definitely not as much as Shadow and maybe Omen. But the way I believe I'd probably do it would be it might have not scratch that. It would have nothing to do with the plot of definitely of the movie, and probably not much to do with the plot of. I think I've only read the first and second book, and even then it was for a book report for school, so I don't remember much about it. But it would be set on the world, maybe a couple years, like a couple hundred years before the events of the book, or maybe a couple years in the future, or something like that, so that there would be no risk of encountering the same characters, because I really don't like that idea. And it would just be, I'd find some sort of goal. I'd do some research on the history of the world, and then find some sort of goal and reason for these people to be together, though they would probably mostly only be of the same race, the same group. It would make zero sense for them to be mixed. That just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I'd find some sort of goal and some sort of reason why these people would be in the same group, and then just base it off of that.
Okay. If I was, it doesn't take a gun to make me want to run a campaign for my friends. I love DMing. But if somebody asked me, hey, would you mind doing a John Carter variation of the campaign for a couple week campaign, I would probably do it like the 1980s Dungeons and Dragon cartoon, where you have a group of kids, teenagers, that are somehow magically teleported to Mars. And John Carter, this would be modern day. This would not be John, Carter era. This would be modern day. So the technology is already up there, but the civilization has evolved a little bit. I'm not talking, because that feels like that time they were over at maybe the Roman era, technology-wise, not technology.
1880s. 1880s is what they were doing, and then the John Carter of Mars, their technology had the point where they could actually watch what's going on Earth in real time.
Right. The culture. I'm not talking about the technology, but the culture was very Roman-esque. It felt from the movie. That's how it felt for me.
Yeah.
So I maybe bump it up to like Victorian England era.
No. See, the whole thing was it's an honor-based society. It's not.
Well, Victorian. You can still do the honor-based society in a Victorian setting.
You need to just read it first before you understand where it's going.
Right. I'm just from the movie.
Another thing you got to remember is it's incredibly hot there for whatever reason.
Hawaiian Victorian era. I don't know. I whatever. But I would
They don't
to
wear
get,
clothes.
to get back to Earth.
Yeah,
you
they were
need
they
to-
were overdressed in the movie. I'm just going to say that.
Yes. They
well,
were.
it's a Disney movie. They have to be slightly overdressed.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying, if you thought they were showing a lot of skin there, no.
I don't know. I think I do it very much like 4 teenagers or 4 players. They would all have to be humans. I would not do any other species.
That's actually not a bad idea, Kyle.
No, it's not.
Going with the kid route, going to Mars. That way you can tone down the strength. You know what I mean? You can still give them some superpowers, but they're like, if they're like Jack's age, or maybe one of them's younger, maybe one of them's older. That's actually a pretty genius idea.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to find a way to, because I can't imagine a culture only staying in that particular bubble from you said 1880s when the whatever that was until now. There would have been some kind of cultural evolution.
There was where they started dealing with each other.
You just make it like a Cub Scout or Boy Scout, or something like that. They're out on a camping trip. I can already see it. Gears working on that. The kids wander into the wrong cave, and boom, they're on Mars.
I mean, I think some of it is when you're talking about this, though, is no, you keep the cultures pretty much similar, because you're also looking at it as if it's 5 generations. For them, 1 generation is 1,000 years.
No, then yes, then it would still very well be. If that's the situation. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't need to read the books. I'm just the stagnant cultures have a way of dying out.
Well,
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Mars is dying.
Yes. Well, yeah, okay.
All right, I did that a little bit fast.
That's fine. I mean, they did dress appropriately for what was there, but they didn't wear clothes if it wasn't necessary. I just sent you one of the pictures, which I just love, from Michael Whalen. It's one of my favorites from Gods of Mars. Don't get me wrong, the culture does change. The culture changes just within the books, but you still have the honor-bound society. It's not to be that. I mean, to be fair, it's not that they didn't know all the stuff going on Earth. They looked over and said, "Oh yeah, we can watch whatever's going on Earth right now." I mean, their technology would be probably like 200 or 300 years above ours, if not more.
That's fair. Well, that actually brings me into my next series of questions. Maybe you guys can explain to me. And I'd love to get Jack's point of view on it as well, as same as Mark's. Now, I know when he locked himself, he basically told his nephew to watch over his body. So his clone, his fax copy of him, whatever, going back to timeline, they faxed him to Mars. I'm sure that's not the case, but it was really weird how they did that. So eventually his body on Earth would die of old age, right?
It doesn't. It's the weird thing. It's whatever that cave is, kind of puts him in suspended animation.
Yeah, he was in the cave.
In the movie, he's in a mausoleum.
Well, yeah, but when it first happens to him in the cave, it's somewhat 15 years later. Well, maybe not 15 years, but it's enough time for the Colonel to die and his body to fully rot away. And his hair might have grown. It looks like it could have, but he hasn't aged much.
No, it's basically when he comes back, everyone's like, "You've been gone for 10 years." Yeah, but he basically it's kind of suspended animation where that was the question: does he actually project himself out there? Things like that.
It's like the Highlander.
Yeah. If somebody kills his Earth body, his Mars body would die.
We assume so. That's never really clarified in the book.
Oh, okay. Because they didn't really. They kind of alluded to that in the movie. Watch over my body.
Mm-hmm.
You inherited all my wealth, all this. He built up while he was trying to figure out a way to get back to Mars. Here, Ed, or not Ed, Ned. Go forth, live a life, have adventures. By the way, my corpse will be in that building, not aging. And so I was just wondering if you guys had a book answer where the movie just didn't, because all movies when it comes from books drop the balls in some places, and I just didn't know this was one of them.
Yeah, well, it's there. You know, we have to look at back then, but it's pulp science fiction fantasy. One of the things they talk about is that John Carter has many times almost been killed, and pretty much if it wasn't a lethal blow, they would heal you within like 24 hours. So combat isn't nearly the same.
He had his healing ability was
No, they
better,
would give them
or
potions or whatever, and
technology.
they would heal like this. So whenever they, whenever we're talking about combat, whenever they would use swords,
Yeah.
it was like, there were several times in the books where he talks about him having a fatal blow on Earth, and then just like, oh yeah, we just heal it up and you're fine, within like a day.
That's weird.
Well, it's not.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, it works for the literature, but that's still weird.
Well, it's like healing salve and stuff. They just basically, you don't have any problems. They go, but they're like, no, they have the salves and they'll cause the body just to re-knit. And
this is the same coming from the same guy who plays in, role playing games where all I have to do is either pour a potion down your throat or wiggle my fingers and you're healed.
Yep.
What did you think? All right. So, what do you guys think of the technology that they did show between the flying boats, the speed bikes, the whatever the vine? It wasn't magic, but whatever element, whatever
The ninth ray.
ninth ray. Was it? What do you guys think of it? I'll start with Jack.
Wait, what? I was reading.
What did you think of their technology, Jack?
Oh, the technology? I mean, I liked the effect. There wasn't much in depth to it, or at least in the movie there wasn't. In the books, I'm certain that there is a lot of that. But well, maybe not, but it seemed like, I don't know how to describe it. It seemed like it was, I don't want to say surface level, but in the movie it definitely felt very, surface level.
No, that's not a beer. That was my daughter drinking green tea.
We're disappointed in her, Connor.
I know. I try to start off in early age. You just don't like the taste. All right, Omina, what did you think? I mean, considering you read the books and whatnot.
Well, okay, so I mean, they do talk about a lot of stuff. I liked it just because I like pulp stuff. I don't like where we're talking about our world and AI and everything else. It's less of that. I like the when you retain the human being aspect of things. Not that everything's run by a giant supercomputer that decides to lie to you. And don't get me wrong, when you talk about honor, that applied to the red Martians and the green Martians, but a lot of the other ones didn't follow this. The white Martians had no honor for the most part, which was interesting. So I thought it was very interesting. But yeah, like Shadow said, it's a dying world, and that's, I don't want to call it post-apocalyptic because it's not that way, but it's a world that used to have a lot of water and everything else, and it's dying. And it went from its heyday to slowly just becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And even Dejah Thoris's father and grandfather were considered great heroes in the books. And but John Carter, because he broke the stuff of ISIS and a few of these others, where he got the different races of Mars to get together. There was that. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind super science. I did like that. And a lot of stuff only went 200 miles an hour, which back in the day, remember, that was like super fast. I mean, they even talks about it. Oh yeah, it's 200 miles an hour, and they rushed across. And the pumps and I think he was already talking about solar panels and stuff. It was. I liked it. I like the Tharks and their guns with their radium bullets that would explode during the daylight. and then at night they would use a different one. I like their technology that you don't really get to see in the movie so much. I mean, it's there, but it's not described in any way, shape, or form, with the exception of the ninth ray. And a lot of times they don't even say the ninth ray; they would call it, what was it? It was a different color or something that they couldn't describe, which I thought was interesting. I mean, I liked it. I thought it did a pretty good job overall for that aspect. It gave you the idea of, and even the cities in Barsoom, like Shadow talks about in this, and I won't call it a cultural memory, whether it's Atlantis or anything else. The whole idea that there was a greater civilization than there is now, and that we've fallen from where we once were, is so classic. And I think that there's a racial memory within human beings that of this occurring, and we know when it would have occurred, but people don't want to believe it. They want to believe that we're at the highest level we can be. In some ways we are, in some ways we aren't. So anyway,
that's a whole different conversation for the Nathan Allen Show, which you can check out every Saturday between 9 to whenever it decides to close shop. Right after the Shadow Show, if I should mention.
Well, it's during the Shadow and after.
Yeah. You could have a Nathan sandwich on YouTube land if you. Oh, that's weird. All right, letting that go. All right, what about you, Mark? You're about on the same boat as I am. All I've seen was the movie. I've never read any of the books. What did you think of the technology that they showed in the movies?
I liked it. It's kind of like I think I've heard people say like vintage sci-fi or retro sci-fi look. I like you didn't see like computers and everything all merged into everything else controlling everything. It was all had gears and knobs and kind of some things that look a little more clunky than you would think they would be for these machines to do the feats that they did. But I like the look and the aesthetic of it, and it suited it, and it just kind of reminds me of I can see where Flash Gordon kind of evolved from this too, but it has that look and appeal and aesthetic of that. Like you think of the old ray guns and old when you see the old comics with the guys with the bubble space helmets and stuff like that. I liked it. It's a cool look.
All right. Shadow?
To be honest, there was some things, as cool as the stuff looked, I always pictured the airships completely different. I never pictured them that, awesome looking and that really high tech. I always pictured them a lot more steampunky, or using helium as in the actual gas, because that was kind of a thing as well. It wasn't really the gas, it was the ninth ray that was keeping them aloft, but it was somehow contained in like tanks or something, if I recall correctly.
It was radium. It was radium tanks, if I remember correctly. They didn't use helium. It was radium that they did everything for, because that was the era that radiation wasn't viewed as dangerous, and it was like, as a kid, you could get stuff together. You're like, well, wait a minute, this is bad.
Yeah. There was some junk science in the overall thing, but for a guy who knew nothing about any of that sort of thing, growing up on a farm and just making this stuff up and flying by the seat of his pants at his typewriter, he really got lucky, I guess you could say, or did as much research as his meager funds would allow at the time. There's some the whole ninth ray description just kind of made my head hurt. Reading it, I'm like, it's not how things work, but it was still fun. And if you can just kind of just gloss over that and move on to the next paragraph, you'll be good to go. Because now it's we've got other ways to explain that stuff, and the large amount of glass that seemed to be everywhere kind of was interesting, but at the same time potentially devastating. with the airships having so much glass on them, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be a smart choice. But maybe because the plant had so much sand, it was an easy sort of material to come up with. It just
It kind of
like I
does.
said,
All you need is a 10th heat and sand, and they had both.
right. So I get it, but I just always pictured things differently, even though everything did. Uh, it was beautiful. We were commenting, Jack and I, this morning that the little flyers, the workmanship that actually went into making that prop that the actors would sit on, that was a lot of work. If you tried to commission someone to reproduce one of those things, even if you had the schematics and the blueprints, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars to probably get some guys to, weld that thing together, and then, the gears and all that stuff. That's where the money went, was all the mechanical props that I wonder where they are, because I would love to have that little one-man flyer out on my front lawn, this is, you know what I mean, as a decoration, kind of like a fountain, but no water because I wouldn't want it to rust over the years. But dang, that thing's got to be sitting in somebody's warehouse just collecting dust, when that thing was kind of awesome looking. If the company Jetson that makes those little one man drones that you can fly on, if they start making them looking like that, I'm seriously going to be investing.
I was going to say, you want one of those in your front yard, and I want that the leg and the thigh lamp from the Christmas Story in my living room, hanging out the window. I'm single. Who the fuck is going to get mad at me?
No, as a collector, just from a collector's point of view, that prop could probably easily, bring $100,000.
Oh, the thing from the movie. No, they were both movies. The one from the John Carter movie, or the one from the Christmas Story.
Christmas Story.
Okay.
Seriously, from Christmas Story, that would, I could easily say it between. You see it selling in an auction between $50,000 and $100,000.
I've seen miniatures.
Whereas the flyer, I don't think it would book more than 20,000 if it was in the same auction.
I agree, because the leg is more, not memorable, more recognizable. You have to have somebody who's actually seen the movie to actually know what the hell that thing was, for the John Carter thing. All right. What was the last movie? What was the last thing I want to ask? Because we're about that time. Oh, yeah. Mark. Do you have a pick for next week?
Yeah, I was gonna maybe, if we're kind of still working on this Valentine's theme. I don't know how easy it is for everybody to get. I was kind of leaning towards the movie Kroll, because it has that, love conquers all.
Oh my God!
I haven't seen
type
Kroll
theme in it.
in decades.
If that's easy enough for everybody to get, or otherwise, it's a real slow burn. I was thinking somewhere in time, because of the probably a lot because of the author behind it is probably one of the most important sci-fi authors of the 20th century. But
I'm going to say this much: when Shadow tells you to buy books, listen to Shadow.
Yeah.
I paid a little bit more because I wanted it over Christmas, and I paid for such. And okay, it's $15 more, but for $3, but it's still just listen to Shadow. When he tells you to buy a book after Valentine's Day, listen to him.
So either one of those two, I don't know.
Well,
Kroll.
we'll find a way.
Yeah.
Kroll's out there. I've seen it, kind of. If I can pay $3 to rent it, fine. From what I remember, somewhere in time, I think Kroll might be a little more fun.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It will be. Yeah, I think everybody. The other one's a real slow burn. It had a like a sci-fi element and
wasn't Christopher
love
Reeve
story interesting.
No.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve and the medicine woman. What's her name? Oh.
It's Jane Seymour.
Yeah, I think I thought
I'm
I think
looking
that's
at the
who was
cast
the.
now. I don't know. Liam Neeson was in it. Ken Marshall,
Robbie Coltrane.
Robbie Coltrane. God rest his soul.
I loved him in Cracker. You know,
Yeah.
did you ever watch Cracker?
I've seen it.
Okay, the British series. I just want to make sure because I can see you just saying he's my guy.
No, I've seen it. There's there's a bunch of really good, really good, really talented British actors in that movie. So yeah, we'll do that. And before I forget, no, Jack, I didn't skip you. I just want to give you a little bit more time to think about it. What did you think of the technology in the movie?
The technology in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual design of it was really cool. I liked all of that stuff. The flyers and stuff. That stuff was amazing. But I mean, I don't know.
And you know what I see? I see you and your dad this coming April going to your favorite dollar store, Hobby Lobby, whatever craft stores you tend to go to. It says, I want to build that flying ship from John Crider. You know the one I'm talking about, the one that crashes. Can we do it? Yeah, we need some. We need some lollipop sticks, some hot glue guns, some pieces of fabric, whatever you guys just imagine. But that's why I see coming out of April this month. Maybe not April this year, but I see sometime soon you and your dad cracking down on that.
We kind of did make some airships, but they weren't anywhere near. They were more of the steampunk look, but we made them last April when we did the full John Carter.
Yeah, we already did do a John Carter month.
And so this April, we're actually doing westerns again.
Sorry, I was trying to add some, contents to your guys' month.
We did that last year, and if you haven't seen them, we took super soakers, some cheap super soakers, and turned them into usable steampunk airships.
All right.
Because the other ones were just too damn hard. I wouldn't even know where to start.
So
other than hiring somebody.
I think I'd do matchsticks. I think I know how I would build it if I with hot glue and match. I've built boats before. It's just the wings on the side is going to give me a little bit of pause. I'm thinking chopsticks, but that's just me. But I'm gonna go ahead and go through the rounds. Mark, what do you got going on?
Nothing. I got some bunch of life stuff going on right now, so I'm gonna be catching up on some stuff. So nothing really for me right at the moment.
All right. Omanel, I know the answer to yours is whoever channel I end up on next.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's always on someone's channel.
All right. So, Shadow, since you got the most going on, what do you got going on?
Tonight, I'm not sure if we're going to do anything. Normally we do a painting video, but the little guy's got his little backlog with some of his, real world stuff. But, it's right there in the name, Shadow and Son, father and son, just doing, gaming, crafting, painting, miniature review stuff. Whatever we come up with, we're a little off our regular schedule, and we're going to probably be able to get back to that, pretty regularly next month. We're just going to kind of coast through this month, and whatever piques our fancy, we'll do something on it. Right now we're doing some Gundams, but that's going to be really more for next month. We're going to do mostly mechs and mech combat and giant stompy robots wherever we can for the month. But for now, we're just going to try and catch up with our previous stuff that we got kind of backlogged, some projects. But you'll see. If we're not on the our channel, we'll be hanging out with other fine folks out there. Speaking of fine folks out there, I don't know what happened to Bo tonight, but if you guys aren't subscribed to Bo Paints Minis, go check him out. Squirrel Hermit. Laura, thanks for showing up again. You really you are just a fountain of absolute gold mine-ish wealth of information out there. You really gotta, start a channel or put yourself out there a little more because you have got a lot to share. And I'm really glad we got a chance to hang out last night and tonight. So, keep doing what you're doing. Just do more of it.
Hey, Connell. No.
Yeah.
I got to bring up one other thing. I got to build one more of these.
I get it. I was actually talking to my daughter while we were cleaning the apartment. It's like, either I need to stop collecting minis or I need to get some more cheap shelving units. It's just like, you just need to get more cheap shelving units. And I'm like, you're high five.
Well, all I wanted is to be this tall. I'm about 6 foot. I like it to be at least 6 foot. Like this is over here, and a little bit deeper because I like the look of it. I do. I just wish that I could hold more books. Stop making these damn bookshelves short. They should be tall. I say this until I have to move and like, God, shoot me.
She does have her own channel.
Well, just remember, look at Connell's channel and how many viewers he has, subscribers. So it's not that you can't do.
Don't look. Jesus. I'm pretty sure Mark has more subscribers than me at this moment. I can't even get my own daughter to subscribe because she knows better. With that being said, next week we'll be talking about the what year was this made?
83.
1983. Oh wow! When was it released? It was released in July. I wasn't even born yet. I will be in a matter of months, but I wasn't born yet. We'll be talking about it, and love to hear your guys' chat, your opinions on it, and amongst us, the people on panel. I want to thank everybody in the chat for being here. Lauren, Hungar, I hope you're at home and at the hospital. Crafty Gamer, now you're already in here. Multi Gunman, Kyle, James L. If it wasn't for you guys, it would just be 4.5 men talking about their favorite movies into YouTube, wondering why the hell are we doing this. So with that being said, everybody out there, you have
everyone donate to Connell's GoFundMe for getting his height surgery. He really needs it.
So you need to stop listening.
Hey, real quick before we head out, Laura, can you send me or send us the name of your YouTube channel, and we'll all do what we can to help you.
I looked it up.
What?
I looked it up. It's just Laura Mama.
Laura Mama. Huh. All right.
You just change it to the RPG Grandma because that's what we're calling you.
All right. Well, everybody out there, you all have a good one. People on the panel, please stick around for a few more minutes after the show ends so we can figure out what we're doing for March.
I might.
I will beat you like a redhead stepchild, and I know where I can get red hair dye at. And your dad will be laughing the entire time.
It's not holding him down.
I feel cheated if I'd known Crow.
Hold you down. All right.
Hey, Mark, I have to laugh because Kroll was on HBO Max, just like a month or two ago. So they just switched around. That's why I have to oh man, now I gotta go buy it.